Okay, so we flew out of Calgary. We drove to Calgary, drove to Calgary, and stayed at some friend's place that night. And this is Gerald Andrews. He's one of our alumni from way back in the early 2000s.
A student body president.
And then he was on the board at Miller Bible College.
For 9 years. And he actually came to Miller the first year I taught there in 2000. Although I taught earlier, but full time.
So we stayed at his in-laws' place while they were gone, and he kindly drove us to the airport. And we flew with KLM, big airplanes. It was really good. Sometimes when we've traveled, it's taken 72 hours from the time the airplane left the tarmac till when we set down after maybe 6 flights. This was only 2 flights, and it took 25 hours from the time the plane left till the time it landed. And while we're in the airport, you get to stay, like especially international flights, you get to stay there for like 3 hours. So you see that the second "we" is in parentheses. Arnie's wife doesn't study Greek while I'm waiting.
Yeah. Everyone's just on Facebook learning squat, and I am learning the Word of God.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow, we're impressed.
Marvel in my own mind.
Yes. So a little bit of difference between Rwanda and Canada. I looked this up. The size of Canada is 38.25 million people. Rwanda has about 13.5 million people. But the size of Canada is 3.8 million square miles, and Rwanda is just over 10,000 square miles. So they've got a lot of people, and yeah, it's called the land of 1,000 hills, and their hills, a lot of their hills are mountains.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
The whole country is basically a volcanic country. The rock is all volcanic rock.
Okay, so we arrived a couple of days early in the capital of Kigali, and we went for a couple of walks. One of our walks was 2 hours just to see. We went in the residential section, and they have a real variety. You see, when they were rebuilding the country after the genocide, that they understood the road system. Most people do not own a vehicle. So they made sidewalks because most people either walked and some had bikes. If you saw motorbikes, usually they had red helmets with a red vest, and those were taxis. We didn't go on them.
The less than 1% of people in Rwanda have a car. Less than
Own
1%.
a vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah, less than 1%.
But there's beauty everywhere. You saw those beautiful flowers. Things grow really well. We were there in the dry season, July, but most of the year is a rainy season, and just things grow. Everywhere you go, they've planted trees, or they have gardens. Like any patch of dirt, they'll plant a garden there. They have beautiful, these are actually brick walls, and that they've painted. So this is a view from our hotel, and you can see how lush it is with all the trees. Interspersed, you see a lot of beautiful big homes, but interspersed with all these beautiful homes, you'll see just very small homes.
Back it up.
You want me to
Let them
back
see
up?
it. Well, yeah, you're a little quick.
Okay.
The whole idea is to eventually get the people out of squalor, but it's going to take a long time. The average Rwandan would make about $2 US a day working, And
I
they-
don't need a light, Brian. I don't need a light if you want to turn the lights off.
Yeah, and so the difference between those who are paid well, say if they work for an international company or the UN or something like that, is horrendously different than the average Rwandan. Yep.
So Arnie and I went to the mall, otherwise known as a marketplace. And I don't think there's any place comparable in Canada, shopping-wise, as there is in marketplaces in other countries. So it's a big, huge covered building, and you go in, each shop is about the size of
Our nursery.
our nursery, yeah. And so even when you're approaching the marketplace, there are people coming to sell you things and to entice you to come to their shop so that you'll purchase things. Now, we stood out. I don't know why. We didn't have a tan, and our hair was lighter, and yeah.
We're perceived walking wallets.
Yes. So they really are trying to, and we didn't have very much Rwandan currency, so we had to be very careful with what we were spending. And we met the lady on the left. Her name is Anastasia, and she sells the beautiful fabric that you see there. And then the woman on the other side of Arnie, she is one of the many seamstresses. And so Anastasia kind of orchestrates it. You pick the material, the seamstresses show you on different options on your phone, and you choose what you want. And so Arnie's shirt and my dress, and we got 2 other items as well. So, yeah.
Just hold it. The lady who's a seamstress is crippled.
She has only one leg.
Yeah, she's crippled. And Anastasia is a deaconess in her church, a lovely Christian lady.
And she really helped us white people out.
Oh yeah, but she specifically helps out the moms. She was a single mom with kids, and said.
Yeah, this lady had 3 children.
She had 3 children, so she said, if you could do something for her, that would be great. And so, wonderful lady. Christian lady. She actually wanted to take our course as a deaconess, and it was just full. So maybe in the future. But she's a Christian bright light in the marketplace in Kigali, and she's well known and was respected, and taking her Christian faith right into the market in a wonderful way. A wonderful lady.
How encouraging for us.
Absolutely, it was just wonderful.
And another one of the tailors. I found it interesting because, like I said, we draw attention everywhere we go. And so they like to get a picture taking out of us. Okay, so I was going to look up the statistics. You can see on the right, the red dot is Kigali, the capital, and up left is where the actual Bible college is. And it took us 4 hours to travel, and it is up and down and curves, and always with the sidewalks on the side. And so it took us 4 hours. The maximum speed is 60 kilometers because it's so windy and up and down, and people are walking on both sides and riding their bikes with big cargo that they're carrying.
If you drive too fast, you will get caught because they hide cameras all over the highway in the bush, and they move them. They're portable, and you get some pretty good fines if you go 70 or 80 clicks when you're supposed to be going 60. The road is actually built for probably 90 clicks, but there's so many people on the roads, and there's cliffs on one side or mountain on the other, so accidents would be horrific. So anyways, yeah, you look on the map and it's like, that should take you about an hour and a half. 4 hours. 4 hours.
And the drivers are amazing because they can pass Um, they can pass when it's a curve and when you can't see where the next vehicle's coming. And I'd say about a third of the vehicles on the road were big transport vehicles like semis and that. So they're just skilled drivers.
Oh, yeah.
See, there's the highway. And the highway is paved. It's very nice, really good condition. But yeah, there's lots of people. You can see as we're driving, it's a small country and there's lots of people there. And so everywhere are homes. They don't even need roads to their homes because most people walk. And there's a lot of terraces, like they just build on the side.
Generally, the poorer you are, the higher up the mountain you go, because you have to carry your water farther, because you're bringing all your water up. You know what I mean? They'll put great big tanks in the backyard sometimes during the rainy season and try and fill them up. But if they run out of water, it's bucket time. And they put it on their heads and they carry it. And sometimes they have to carry it for miles. So they're tough people. And almost every one of them was in great shape. It's a nation on the move.
If there aren't houses planted, usually there are crops that they plant everywhere. And at the bottom in the valley, they do have some irrigation, and I watch the irrigation system. There would be people with buckets, and they'd have narrow ditches, and they'd pull the bucket with water up and throw it on. So that was their irrigation system. Can anybody guess what crop that would be on the terrace on the side of the mountain? We have some farmers here. Can you guess what crop it is?
Yeah, Pat's right. It's wheat.
Yeah, so...
You cannot grow wheat in Rwanda. There's not enough daylight. Only place you can grow, there's not enough hours of sun. Like Saskatchewan has so many hours of sun, and that's necessary for wheat. As hot as it is there, and there's no winter, and they got 12 months, wheat will not come to fruition if you plant it in the bottom of the valleys. It has to be on the peaks of the mountains because it's pitch black by 6:30. Like 6:30 every day, it's pitch black. So they don't get enough sunshine. So all the wheat is up in the mountains. And you can imagine on those mountains, you're not using combines to take it down. It's by hand. Yeah.
And we said mode of transportation, most people are walking, but if they have something to transport, bicycles. No e-bikes, bicycles. This is, I believe this is sugarcane.
Yeah, that's sugarcane.
And you can see on the right-hand side too, another mode of transporting goods on your head. Mostly I think I saw ladies doing that.
Yeah.
But they're so graceful and they're so strong, and a lot of times they're not even holding it, they're just walking. And the roads, if you get off the highway, they are not easy to walk on. It's just volcanic rock.
Yeah. People that have bicycles that are pushing stuff, because it's up and down, it's like it's massive. Like sometimes they'll have to push a load of bricks, for example, and they might have to go uphill for 5 miles and then back down to get more brick. They might only do a couple loads an entire day. And if they do a couple loads an entire day, that will give them enough to feed their family for the day. That's all. There's no extra. They have to work each day if they're going to eat that day.
So that is on a cart with 3 wheels.
Yeah. I don't think I'd want to be under the cart.
But look how beautiful the colors of the fabric are with the clothes. No idea. We didn't stop and ask them.
If a lot
Blessing, would you know what would be in those bags?
Yeah, the bags over there.
Like that.
It'd be food stuff mostly. If they go to a special place, they have in Rwanda, they have a particular basket that's much nicer shape, and that means you're probably celebrating a wedding or you're honoring a funeral.
I think I have a picture.
Okay, so go ahead, Sharon.
So you can see the two ladies on the bottom. They have what Arnie was just talking about, their baskets, and they've covered them in fabric. But when they want to go visit somebody who's just had a baby or maybe just gotten married or some kind of celebration or helping, they'll put things like food in the basket and put on their good clothes and go to visit and give a gift.
The Rwandans on average are comfortable with walking 6 to 8 miles to do something. If there's a church that's beyond 8 miles, you'd have to have believers to. You can't get non-believers to go to a church if they have to walk more than 8 miles, because 4 of the miles will be uphill. And so they really do a lot of walking.
Okay, can anybody guess what are in those big white bags? It's another crop. They're carrots. They somehow tie them all together in this big tower and then cover them in bags, and that's a carrot crop. Often you'll see women with their babies carrying them on the back. We were told that when it's really crowded or if they're going on to a bus or something like that, it's better to have the baby in front of them so the baby's leg doesn't get banged on something or someone doesn't try to steal them. Also, we were told that young moms were some of the best fed people, because the tradition is when somebody has a baby, you make sure the baby has enough food. And so the mom benefits by that. Their mortality rate for babies has really dropped.
Right. It was very high. It was almost 50% at one time, and then it dropped, and it's dropped dramatically. And 90% of the babies live now or more. And because of that, there are tens of thousands of children who are 8, 9 years old and not younger. They're just everywhere. It's fantastic. It's got to be one of the youngest populations in the world. It's very, very young country.
Okay, one of the reasons the children do so much better is nutrition-wise, things have improved. They started out with a program, I think they called it One Cow for Every Family. And that would provide milk, and they could sell milk too to make some money, so it would provide nutrition. But they found, especially with people who are mostly are very poor, to find a place for a big cow to eat enough and to store a cow. What do you do with a cow? That it didn't work out as well. And so most people prefer to have a goat. And that's smaller. With a cow, you have to have a freezer and have it inspected that it is adequate to store beef in it. And most people, they don't have a fridge, let alone a freezer.
They don't have electricity.
They don't have electricity.
Mm-hmm.
So a goat is a really good thing.
They'll eat the entire goat in one sitting or 2 sittings when they bring people. But the poor people only eat meat maybe 2 to 5 times per year. Eating meat is a real luxury in Rwanda for the vast majority of people.
Yes, so a couple of days before we left, the family we were staying with, they were given a goat. So we got to talk to the goat.
I wasn't going to get friendly with the goat because the goat's not a she, and therefore it's a meat goat.
Yeah, don't get too friendly, yeah.
No.
So they do have dishwashers there. They have mops, but it looks a little bit different than here. They are hardworking people. The lady on the left, she is peeling potatoes for her supper. You can see in the middle picture, well, even on the left, you see that yellow jug. I think they're about 5 gallons, Arnie? Mm-hmm. And that's where they would go. There'd be a tap, a faucet out in the town, and you'd take your yellow jug and fill it up and then walk the few miles
put it
back.
in your head. Mm-hmm.
And on the right, those are bricks. Those are mud bricks. They are the most inexpensive building material for the Rwandans, and they make them themselves. But they had a flood two months before we got there in the area we were staying, and it wiped out quite a bit of the road, and also houses that were built out of these mud bricks. If they didn't have any protection on them, the flood just it absorbed the water, and the houses there was how many, like 24 in their church that lost their homes?
Completely. I mean, they're just, literally, it's a mud pile. It doesn't matter what you coat the mud bricks with. If it rains enough, it's going to collapse. And so, but they can't afford bricks. You remember what I said? They make about $2 a day. A brick costs $1. So you'd have to work all day, and you'd have enough money to buy 2 bricks if you chose not to eat. So brick houses are way beyond people. And they can make concrete bricks, and they're about 80 cents each, but they're only profitable if you buy like a dump truck worth of sand and a dump truck worth of cement. Then you make them. But where you can buy bricks one at a time. So that's what they do. And then they put a coating on it, and as long as it doesn't have torrential rains, they'll be okay. The church that we were at, they had 24 families who lost their homes, and the entire church, about 400 people, took in all 24 families, and they'll live there until they get back on their feet and have their own homes. So there's no social service from the government on those people. It's just the church steps up, and between the 400 families, or 400 people in the church, they will look after all these 24 families until everyone gets back on their feet and with a home. And that might take 10 years. It's a huge commitment to make sure their fellow believers are not left behind.
So this is a church. It was a church plant, and this is also where they had the Bible college. They also have a school there, and in the planters, I didn't show a picture, but in their flower planters, they are growing carrots and cabbages for the school children to have lunches. So they make the most of every opportunity. The guy on the right is, and I couldn't quite get what the name was to start with, but in Canadian, it's Rocky. So he was wonderful. He showed me all around the complex, explained things. They had one little area that was a cement pad that had basketball hoops, and that was a playground for the students. Do you want to talk about that now?
Well, all I can say is that the original church, the Baptist church, has 9 church plants. And between the 9 church plants, they are schooling, like giving education in English to 5,000 children, growing by about 1,000 a year. Okay? So that is a huge, huge social benefit. And so what's happening is people who do not know Jesus, but they want their kids to learn English, because it's a private school, they feed the kids, and they charge virtually nothing for the kids to come to school. Their teachers are all Christians. They're highly dedicated. They only get $150 a month, which is much better than many, but it's much less that they would get if they went to another country. And so it's hard to keep teachers in Rwanda because they have enough education. They could go to the Congo or Kenya, Nairobi, lots of places, and they make way more money. And so the Christian teachers stay, and from that, all these children, they go home, and they've been taught Bible as well as English, and thousands of people are coming to Jesus Christ in Rwanda through the evangelism that comes through reaching their children. Well, you can.
Oh, do you have the number there? That little paper? Eli.
Mission Impossible. It will blow up in 5 seconds.
Go back.
Yep. There. It wouldn't make any difference. No, no, because what happens is it takes out the foundation. Because you're talking, you can have water at 6 feet high coming off the mountains, and because it's lava rock, it really comes out when it comes out, and those houses don't have a chance.
So one thing I was very excited for, I'm not sure if you know this, but when Arnie and I were married 43 years ago, Arnie felt called to go do ministry in Africa. So in Kelowna, where we were living, there was a retired couple, a missionary couple, and they were teaching us one of the Bantu languages with all the clicks in it. And so we were starting to learn that. Don't remember any of it.
I do.
But
Bula bula. Remember that?
that sounds fun to say.
Well, you shouldn't say it. It means kill, kill. But I do remember it.
Well, that's very helpful.
I know. Tells you what I was like 43 years ago.
So it's interesting because a lot of times we have plans or what we feel God wants us to do, and you just have to be obedient and work towards that and follow Him no matter what. We had no idea it would take us 43 years to get to Africa, but God in His time and His appointed time directs you where He wants you to be.
Are we ready, Eli? Okay.
So I've always wanted to go to Africa because of this. Can you push the arrow button? Oh, no sound. So their singing is marvelous. They had a choir of how many people, Arnie? 60?
They had 3 choirs. They had one of 50. They had one of 30. They had another one of 40. They have huge choirs. There's no one who does not sing in church. Like, you look around and it's like they are a singing culture. When they're happy, they sing and they dance. Sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for poor reasons, but they will sing and dance. And at church, they bring that to their church.
And I loved it.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't feel like I was standing out.
Oh, there you go. We're going to hear it.
See the basket on the, okay, it's on the basket on the right-hand side. You can see that very interesting shape of basket that they use. No, thank you.
Doesn't matter where you point.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying everywhere, though.
You'll have to play it again. Next slide. It's not going. Because all the people from that particular choir are about 7 miles away from the church, and they all have to walk. And so you can't get your non-believers to walk that far. And so they are leaving and starting a new church plant as of September. There'll be about 100, it'll start with about 100 people, including a pastor who's trained and a choir of about 30. That choir is very young. That choir was very young.
Now, this is going to be something you've never heard before.
It'll be amazing, I'm sure.
When God called Abraham, he was not an obedient man. Like many of us, the walk of faith is a journey. Many of us did not start very well.
Badeshuri tunakutangiye neza.
But God is kind.
Ariko Imana ni nyabuntu.
God is patient.
Imana yihangana.
And He lets us grow.
Iratureka tugakura.
And He lets us learn.
Ikatureka tukiga.
But He expects us to grow.
Ariko irashaka ko dukura.
He expects us to learn to trust.
Irashaka ko twiga kwizera.
He wants us to learn not to put confidence in the flesh.
Ntabwo ishaka ko twiga kwizera twebwe ubwacu.
This is in class. Oh, who's that friendly looking man? This wasn't staged at all. Okay, so here's the class. We had some money left overs from what had been given to us for our trip, and so we divided it up among the students because they don't get paid while they're at class. And so that's 2 weeks, the week Arnie was there and the following week, and for transportation as well. So they don't have income during that time, and they have extra costs. So we were able to give them gifts at the end, and then 5 of the helpers, like with the sound and video, and the security man that we showed you, Rocky. So they were all able to get a bit of a gift to help them out. Do you want to say anything about Valence?
No.
Okay. Okay, so some of the money was given to buy books for the students, and for the students to be able to give books to the people that they need to teach. They are expected to teach what they've learned in class to other people and pass on their learning. So we brought extra books. That money had been given for that purpose, and so they could give those books as well as help them to teach.
So on that side,
On the right or left?
with all the little,
The USB sticks were also donated,
Yeah.
and on them was also the book
Yeah.
was put on there. As well, they put on there for the PowerPoint presentation that Arnie did while he was teaching. They put that on as well.
yeah, so they ended up with 2,000 slides of how to teach the Torah for 100 hours worth of teaching of Torah. So that will help them. And just, you can't beat it when you can see pictures. And they love pictures, and they love story. And so they were very appreciative of that. And we gave that to them free. But again, thank you very much for your generosity. They were absolutely thrilled with the idea of having some materials. Yeah.
Yeah, usually the Torah is a course Arnie teaches at Miller College, and usually how many hours is it?
Yeah, it's 88 hours, and I had to punch it into 30 to 28. And so it was, but I mean, these guys are pastors. They know their Bibles better than the 18-year-olds do in Canada. And so they really do. And so, and most of them were, I think the youngest was 30 years old. They're not 18-year-olds. And they're almost all pastoring right now. But they still did not, they're the kind of guys that, and gals that, if you mentioned a story, they could tell you the story. But they didn't know the interconnection of it. And they were so appreciative of the fact that for the first time, we are learning how to explain these passages in light of the gospel, in light of Jesus Christ, in light of the covenants, in light of God's plan of salvation, rather than using the Old Testament just as stories for good behavior and good morals. And they said that was absolutely revolutionary for them. They had never heard that. And So I was very appreciative of the fact I got the chance to show them.
So Arnie would teach, like the first Sunday, he preached for 2 services. One was with the translator, which you saw, and the other one was in English. But in the classes, it was 7 hours a day, so that was a lot of teaching each day.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ernestine is in the center, and she works in administration and with the children in the church where this was being held. The other lady is Esperance, and her husband are church planting, and we'll show you some pictures of their church plant. Some of the students, Judith on the left, she sat in the very front, but she was so shy. And so I was really surprised that she wanted a picture with me, and she just gave me a big hug. And so
She works with the youth in the big church. And the other 2 fellows are both church planters.
And who likes my pants? Yeah. Oh, this is a good one. You'll hear her.
And you see how many people
That's how the roads are.
We call it African massage.
That's what it feels like.
The guy is going to massage you.
Yes. So when you read the Africa Study Bible,
Okay, so I don't know if everybody caught that,
Oh,
but
my.
it's called an African massage. So if you're off the highway, then this is what the roads are like. And
Everywhere. Not that wasn't a little piece of it. That's typical road driving once you get off the main roads. It's brutal.
it's even brutal to walk on it.
Oh, it's hard to walk on, and even worse. I mean, I'd rather walk than drive on that thing for 4 hours. But anyways, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. Okay, so Esperance, we showed you a picture of with myself. This is their church plant. So the first church where the college is being held has 9 church plants in the process.
Yeah, 9 in the process, but some of them are quite large already. So, yeah.
And this building here, like this is the gates that you go through to get to the buildings. It also has a school there, and each year they want to add another grade to it. But they already have punched out the back or the front of their church building because there's so many people there. It's grown so much. They had 2 services, and now they've had to just make the church building larger. This is Esperance and her husband. I don't remember his name. He wasn't one of the students.
Emmanuel. Pastor Emmanuel. He has a PhD. He's just about finished it from Canada and the States. He got his McMaster's. He and his wife, he could make good money in Canada with a PhD. And he has chosen to stay with his people, church plant, for virtually nothing. His church plant now has 400 people in it. And that's a community that had no church just a couple of years ago. So they are very hungry for the gospel, very interested in the gospel. And they're coming to faith in huge numbers.
And Jean?
And John, on the side, his dad was a church planter. You see, the heavier fella. His dad was a church planter, and he planted 300 to 400 churches in Rwanda in his lifetime. He's passed on.
And in that time, church plants looked different. They were under a tree, and they just gathered some people together, and that was a church. Now the government has it that... Did you want to say that?
No, you go ahead. You just look at the
The
people.
government they want stability. And so if you're going to be a pastor, you have to have a degree. So that's why Miller is granting degrees and sending half of the teachers there. There's also a big church organization in Ontario that is providing the funds for Arnie and the other teachers to fly there.
Miller paid for that.
They did?
They're doing something else. They're looking after their teachers that they bring. But no, Miller's looking after
So half the teachers are from Miller and half are from this other organization?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And some of them are actually from Rwanda. They have some quality teachers in Rwanda. And they're, like, for example, the fellow who's going to be teaching the book of Judges and Joshua, he is actually the father, and he has a doctorate degree. He is the father of the fellow who was my interpreter in my sermon. And so they have some really good teachers, but they have no one there that can give a degree. One of the problems Africa has is people, they fly into Africa, they promise people that if they give them money, they'll become super rich, and then they fly away. And they take what little they have, and they take the rest of it. And because people are so desperate, they will believe the lie, because they see you come in on a plane, and they see you having wealth, and then you tell them how you got that wealth, and what they have to do to get the wealth. They believe it, and they give the little funds they have in something that's so wrong. And so the government is saying, we need stability. We need stability. And a second thing that the government has decided is you can't plant a church unless you can prove that you've got a social benefit, because that prevents people from just coming in and leaving and taking money from the people. So you have to stay. And a social benefit could be a school for children. It could be a medical center. One of the pastors is a nurse. He's a qualified nurse. And so as he's planting his church, they're planning on making a medical center. Because, again, all the people walk, and there's no hospital within miles of that church. And so the people love the idea of a church coming into their area, because it brings hospitals or medical centers and schools and other things with it. And it's just such a blessing that these guys are willing to do that. What's that? Yeah, and another thing that it's different in Rwanda than Canada. In Canada, churches are not allowed to have business on the side, okay? But in Rwanda, they want you to do that. Their people are so impoverished that they encourage the churches that if you can start a business, that you'll be taxed on it, and it's separate from the giving. But in the churches, less than 5% of the people will pay 90% of all the bills of a church, okay? Because the poor are very poor. And so the few that have money can make it go a long ways. So what they'll do, for example, they have 5,000 children in school, and what they're going to do is they're going to start a sewing business, so that they're going to buy all the material themselves. Rather than buying uniforms from others, they're going to buy all the material, and they're going to hire ladies in the communities, many of them who have got kids in the school, whether they're Christian or not, and give them jobs. And then they will provide uniforms at a much cheaper price for all the kids who are in their schools. They expect it's going to be well over 10,000 very quickly. And then they can also sell those uniforms to other schools who want them. The government sees that as very positive, because you're bringing people out of poverty. And people that have a job, they become a benefit to the church, because then they can help also the church in their giving. And so it's just a win-win situation. So that's one difference between them. In Canada, of course, there's a strong line between the two. But in a country where people are on subsistent living, if the church can help people get work, they see that, the government sees that as nothing but a plus. That's a good thing.
So this is another church planter, and this is the beginning of what a church plant looks like. They use, like Arnie said, it's on a volcano, and so there's an abundance of volcanic rock, and so they're going to use it to build foundations. So you can see that they're starting to build foundations there.
That's the best foundation that they can afford. And so it's much better than mud, because the water will not wash that away. And that's very expensive. So what happens is you use the rock that's on your property, because like each one of those rocks would be worth 4 days' wage. 4 days' wage. Figure out how much you make in 4 days, and then you get to buy one lava rock. And so you use the rocks that are on the property, and then what people do, they have no money, but what they do to feel a part of this movement, they will pick a piece of lava rock from their property, and they'll bring it. And that will be their way of participating in this church plant. They know when the church plant comes, there's a school coming. So both the believers and non-believers are all wanting to help. One particular fella was looking for work, and he saw them building, and so he came. He was a mason. And when he found out it was a church that was coming with a school, he actually gave 2 bags of cement free to them, which would be like a week's worth of pay each one. And so, they led 14 people to Jesus from the community so far, just sharing Christ with them as people from the community came to build the foundation. They're sharing the gospel with them as they're doing this. And so what they'll do is they'll build the church plant, the foundation, and then when they have funds, they will build up the walls. And they can build the walls. They can build because they can. A person can buy like 1 brick because they'll make it out of concrete. Concrete, and you can buy 1 brick. And so some people buy 2 bricks, and that'll be their commitment. And rich people could buy 1,000 bricks, but there's very few of those. And what they'll do is they'll do that. And when they have the roof on, then the congregation can actually meet. That might take 5 years. So until then, they will have Bible studies, or these people, many of them, they're just waiting for a church. As soon as they can get it built, they're allowed to move in. The government will not allow them to move in until it is built. They don't have to have it really fancy. They don't have to have the floor done, but they have to have doors, windows, and a roof. For church planting, the most difficult thing for them is the roof. It comes with the windows and the doors, because you can't buy a piece of roof. You can't. You either buy it, and it's all steel roofs. And either you buy it or you don't buy it. And so you can't. So that's the big issue for them. But they don't see that as a problem, because they're leading people to Jesus monthly. And so they said, what does it matter? So many of these people, for example, that pastor, he goes to the big church. He's just longing for the day when a portion of the people that go to that church, that's about an 8-mile walk. And they know we cannot get non-believers to walk 8 miles back and forth with their kids. And so when finally the church is built with the roof, he will take out a big portion of the people from where he's going and start it. But during that time, they'll be doing Bible studies all over the place. They're allowed to do Bible studies, but they can't call it a church.
And the people in the community come and help build. They maybe bring 1 rock, and they feel a commitment being part of the church. So when the church opens, they are there.
Oh, the whole community, it won't be just believers. The whole community will come out to celebrate this. They will see this as just a wonderful thing for the community. If you get a green card, let's say to go to Canada or the United States, you don't win it. The whole village does. Rwandans are very generous people. And most people...
Community-minded.
Very community-minded. So most Rwandans that get a green card and go to the States, they send back a very high percentage of their money back to their village. And their villages, you can tell if a village has got someone with a green card, they are at such a higher level than the other places. So the whole village will just dance and sing and party and thank God for anyone to get a green card, because they know that when Rwandans go, they plan on coming back. But they'll there's 2 truck drivers, for example, in the States right now, and they've been making money like mad. They're both Christian men, and they've done well. All they do is drive truck. But the kind of money they make in the United States driving truck, and they give a portion of it back to Rwanda, they have literally set up their whole village, their children, their grandchildren, and a whack of other people for a better future. And so it's so important that Rwandans get saved, because many of them do go away, but they almost all want to come back. Yep. Like I said, a very young population.
Do you love their smiles?
Oh, yeah.
And this is what we're saying to our church family. We know you've been praying for us. We know that financially you've supported the people in Rwanda and for Arnie and I, and providing for them. So we say thank you.
Yeah. I'm just going to read one psalm. You can sit down, huh? I'll use my own mic. Psalm 67. Let's just read it together. Turn to Psalm 67. I think this psalm, Sharon and I, it was our Bible reading this morning together. And I said, this is so fitting for what we're doing today. Psalm 67. Let's turn the lights on, please. I'm not the only guy who can't see in the dark. I know Rob can't see squat in the dark, right, Rob? He looks young, but he ain't. Here we go. Psalm 67. May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face shine upon us. That's a good prayer. That's actually a blessing that comes from the Torah, from the first 5 books. The priests would give this prayer, that God's face would shine upon us. It means that we would have his favor. And here's the reason. That your way may be known on earth, your saving power among all the nations. Why would we want God to show us personally favor and show his face to us and give us grace and give us money, give us means, give us education? It's so that the nations may know your way and be blessed because of us. This is what David is saying. David says, God, I want you to bless me so I can be a blessing, not just to my own people, but to all the peoples of the earth. It's such a missionary-minded concept. Let the peoples, not just Israel, let the peoples, Rwandans, Canadians, oh God, let all the peoples praise you. Let all the peoples praise you. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy. For you judge the peoples with equity, with fairness. There's no favoritism with God. Anyone who says to God they're sorry for their sin will find salvation and a smile from their heavenly Father. For you judge the peoples with equity, with fairness, and guide the nations upon the earth. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. The earth has yielded its increase. God, our God, shall bless us. And I believe God will bless you and your families for giving to this project, because God has used your blessing, God's favor in your life, to help people who have so much less, but not just less in material possessions. Many of these children are hearing the gospel for the first time in their entire life. And you can tell, because they're coming to faith in huge numbers. There is nothing that they find familiar or boring about the gospel of Jesus. They see nothing but hope in that message. May God bless you for your efforts, and thank you very much, Becca. Without you, this would not have happened. Becca helped Sharon 4 hours working on this project to make sure that you got a slide presentation. I can talk a lot, but a picture's worth 1,000 words, so then I get to stop. Pastor, if you would lead us in prayer. Eli? One more song. Okay, let's do that. Sounds good.
That you have blessed us so richly, that we have every month the Armstrongs here who are so willing to share the things that you have taught them in your word. I thank you that you've given them this opportunity, that they've been able to train up pastors in Rwanda. I ask that you'd be with those pastors, that they would remember the things they've learned, that they would grow in their love for you, that they'd grow in their knowledge of you, and just be equipped to serve where they are. Lord, help us to grow in our love for the church all over the world. Thank you for this opportunity. In Jesus' name, amen.